Hello everyone and welcome to one of these. We haven't done one in a while. Here we go, here's one. This is a segment taken from this week's episode of Nothing But Static. We also do that episode. We also have like a spoiler-free, just some vague thoughts on No Way Home without any spoilers. We also tackle some of the weirdness that is the content of the British television schedule over Christmas and how Peloton had a very unfortunate week due to television. If you know about that story, then you already probably know. But obviously, if you're here for the goods. Hawkeye. So we are all talk Hawkeye all the time. A couple of Hawkeyes running around, but it's Christmas, as it is otherwise known. So we go full spoilers right out the gate with this one, which is unusual for us, but I think we're covering all 6 episodes, and it's just our general thoughts about how it all turned out. So yeah, if you're interested in that sort of thing, that conversation is here. If you want to hear some of the other stuff I just mentioned that we talk about, then head over to the audio platform of your choice to find the Nothing But Static podcast and listen to the full episode. But this is the entire Hawkeye section, so there's nothing else said in that podcast about Hawkeye. So if you just want Hawkeye, you're in the right place. So yeah, take it away. Me from the past. But Hawkeye. I feel like I want to start with your thoughts on this because when we hinted we were going to talk about this last week and we did a couple of weeks ago, and you did like a little mini review from the midway point or just past the midway point maybe. You were kind of like in a medium place with this, which intrigued me. So yeah, God, I'm very curious. How do you feel having seen the whole thing? You didn't see me then, Chris, but when I said the whole thing, I used my arms to like make a big over my head, like a big round shape. The whole thing, from over my head right down to like my chest, just like a big circle.
Yeah, I in the main, I do.
Just ignore that.
Yeah, no, it's very nice. It's a nice visual, but I don't know what you want me to. What reaction to that should I be like? You should be like, okay, cool. You made a hole.
I don't know. Make fun of me for being an arsehole, I suppose. I don't know.
You literally, with your hands, made the arsehole that you are.
There you go.
Something like that. Something like that. I do have nitpicks that I can't help feeling about it, which I'll go into. On the main, I think it's a lot of fun. I think Haley Steinfeld is brilliant. Her performance is fantastic. I think she and Renna did a really good job together. I think a lot of it is a whole lot of fun. I think I liked the fact that we kind of went street level with an Avenger, and we kind of took it to the streets in the way that those original Netflix shows like Daredevil did. In a way, you've then automatically got a comparison, and I think some of those shows are a lot stronger, some are a lot weaker. I don't know if it has a thing in the way that WandaVision's thing was grief and sitcoms, in the way that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier's things was taking a look at racism in America, etc. Loki's thing was this kind of big what happens when we go outside of the universes and the multiverse and stuff like that. Now again, maybe it doesn't need to have a thing, but I think the problem isn't that it didn't have a thing. I think my challenge with this show is it tried to do an awful lot. I can't stress enough, spoilers here, but sort of watching it, you're like, oh, the Tracksuit Mafia, oh, sweet, that's a really cool idea. I've heard of that. Echo, right, we're now dealing with Echo. Okay, cool, Echo, she's getting a spin-off. She's pretty cool, sweet. Let's really delve into Yelena's here. Cool, okay, cool, no, sweet. From Black Widow, sweet. Let's look at Yelena. It's Kingpin. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, Kingpin. Let's do Kingpin. And don't get me wrong, Episode 6 wraps it all up and brings it all kind of not together, but juggles much better than I thought it would. But it feels like, and I'm sure this wasn't deliberate, but it feels like if you looked at the list of Marvel shows on the roster and went, what is the one where we kind of need to chuck a lot of stuff at it? We need to put Yelena in and put Kingpin in. You'd go, maybe the Hawkeye one? And I think as a result, some stuff that would have benefited from looking at it in kind of deeper ways didn't happen because the show is trying to cram in quite a lot. So, for example, Kate Bishop goes head to toe with a widow that we know is a really powerful, one of the strongest, one of the most highly trained widows out there. And how is that okay? Because she did karate lessons or whatever it was, martial arts training since she was a kid. Like that's how they explain all her skills and aptitudes. She's been working with a bow and arrow for ages, and she did martial arts from when she was a kid. And I just feel like with more time to develop that more, maybe, I don't know if it's flashbacks, I don't know what it is, but I think there's things like that. Let's be honest. Kingpin's return, fantastic. Is the best way to reveal that a grainy photo on a phone? Like, of a scene that we then see in full and cut back out to the phone the very next episode? Like, why don't we have that build more and see it as a scene? Like, you have her maybe watching them, and she calls Hawkeye, and she's like, who's this guy? And he goes over and joins her, and whatever it may be. I think there's a lot of stuff in the show that would have benefited from being developed further that we don't see developed because the show is doing the Tracksuit Mafia, Kingpin, Echo, Yelena, etc., doing all of these things. That doesn't mean, that is me talking about fundamentally a bit of a nitpick in more detail than I have the compliments. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the show, because I really did. I thought it's some of Renner's best acting. I thought it was a whole lot of fun. I thought Kate Bishop and Haley Steinfeld were, if I'm saying her name wrong, I apologise. Were absolutely brilliant.
You were all good. She's no Chris Noth.
I did come away thinking that, and also, and this is really, really personal, and I know that, and I apologise. If you're going to trailer something as a Christmas film, I want it to be all Christmas. I want, even though Hawkeye said it a lot, I want every other minute Jeremy Renner to be going, I've got to get home for Christmas. Like, I want people fighting in front of a big, well, they do. Like, there's a lot of Christmas in the final episode, and it's glorious. But I think there were things they could have pushed the Christmas a bit more. That's about promotion, not the show. That's about my own personal feelings towards Christmas movies, which I love. But yeah, my big thing is I think it tried to do an awful lot, which meant they had to hand wave around things. Another good example is her mum's fiance. I think it's Jack. Like, early on, you're like, what's the deal with him? Because they need to make it seem like he might be the villain. And then in the final episode, you realise that, okay, well, he's still been a bit odd, and there still seems to be more to him. How are we going to deal with that? Have we got the time to deal with that? Can we develop him? No, we'll turn him into comic relief. And it will be, well, it's because actually he's our comic relief character. And you kind of go, oh, okay, so he's a good guy, but he's the comic relief. Like, okay, fine, I guess, but it just feels a bit rushed. He feels a bit underdeveloped, I think, because of how much the show is trying to do. Is where I landed in the end. Dan.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what you've said. I think it's one of those unfortunate things where is this show enjoyable? Yes, very much so. I had a lot of fun watching it. I've enjoyed it week to week. I've liked that it kind of built in some mysteries, but the mysteries weren't overly complex. So it didn't it didn't in terms of its like story progression. It didn't try to chew on more than it could handle in 6 episodes. But unfortunately, as Chris has pointed out, in terms of the characters, it did include more than it could handle correctly. And as a result, almost every character ends up feeling underserved. Even Kingpin, who I was excited about all series to see, to the point where when they finally showed him, Nadia turned to me and said, "Is that the actor you wanted to play him?" Because I'd said earlier in the season, I hope they bring him in, and I hope it's D'Onofrio. And like I'd said that so many times, I guess, that Nadia had turned around when she saw the Kingpin and wasn't like, "Oh, it's the Kingpin." She was like, "Is that the guy?" Are you going to shut up? So we got cut off then. Sorry, listeners. A bit of a technical snafu. So Nadia was like, "Are you finally going to shut up now about this guy? Now he's on screen." So, from my perspective, with that in mind, of that excitement of Daredevil's Kingpin sort of like showing up and being the same actor, like even that, I think you introducing him, as you said, just through like that footage was really not the way to do it. Like, I think the way you do it is you have him commit some sort of act of violence. Like, wouldn't a more impressive end to that episode have been like it panning up, you seeing him, and then you seeing him like launch a guy through a wall or something? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just some sort of like, just to show his physicality. Because I know his physicality from the Daredevil show. But I've got to imagine a viewer of Hawkeye sees him when he finally comes face to face with Haley Steinfeld's character and goes, well, wait a minute. How is he able to do all that?
Yeah, completely.
Right? Or the other way around, which is that you go, if you do know his character, you go, well, how is she standing toe-to-toe with him? He's a beast of a man. Like, he's an imposing force, and she's just sort of, it's the same problem you had with Yelena, It's like, there's a lot of hand waving to make these characters come together, and it sort of does detract from it. Not completely. I still think the general thrust is really, really good. The overall story is super fun. The character interactions are great. The action's really good. It's just a little overstuffed with people, and therefore none of the characters get the time they deserve. Everyone gets a moment, but no one gets enough moments. And I think the joy of having a TV show rather than a movie is being able to explore these characters in more depth. And I don't think we got to explore Hawkeye in any more depth than we did in the movie. Because
no,
he's as sidelined by all the madness happening around him as he has been in the Avengers movies. And that's a real shame, because I would have quite enjoyed something maybe... So this is one of those really frustrating things where this is both one of the most true to the comic it's adapting versions of a thing. If anyone's read Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon, the Matt Fraction series, so much of the iconography and story beats are present here. But it doesn't do any of the character stuff Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon does. Because that really goes into depth. That's like the definitive Hawkeye story. If you want to read a Hawkeye comic book, because you're like, how do the comics make this character interesting or whatever, then please go read that. It's a great, great story. Really good. One of the best. And it is frustrating a little to have had the opportunity to finally explore Hawkeye, but they were so busy going, oh, we can throw this at it, we can throw this at it, we can throw this at it, that we don't get the one thing I was kind of hoping the show would do, which is explore one of the most underserved members of the original Avengers lineup. And let me tell you this, that's frustrating for another reason, which is not this show's fault. But hey, guess what? One of the other underserved members of the Avengers, original Avengers lineup, got a solo project this year and got fucked over by that too. And was underserved in that. So, either admit you don't give a shit about these characters, Marvel, and stop making stuff about them. Or actually explore them, please. That would be nice.
And it feels, I say, it feels like someone was going, I can't sustain it on just Hawkeye, so we need to chuck this and chuck this and chuck this. And it's like, well, no, maybe it could have.
Yeah, I 100% think it could have. And again, they should have known it could have, because they've clearly based a lot of this on My Life as a Weapon. And that is an amazing and really great Hawkeye story.
Well, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier arguably be Avengers characters, and they've not even got half the time, I don't think, that Wanda, maybe literal screen time, but not the development that Wanda and Vision got in the movies. No. And they pull off that show. And I just think, strip it back, take one of the elements away, and maybe you can. Yeah. You can do it. Maybe make Kingpin the post credits. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's
the reveal is that her mother is behind it, and then she stops her mother, and then at the end you find out in the post credits you find out who her mother was working for, and then you reveal the Kingpin.
Yeah. Because her chemistry with Florence Pugh is fantastic. And you kind of imagine if that final fight was solely focused on Yelena. And maybe they still have the ice rink tracksuit mafia scene is great. Like I say, there's a lot of great stuff in it.
Yeah.
But for the characters, imagine if that last fight was them on her, and maybe you don't kind of have this. Well, I know the whistle, and I can tell you about her feelings for you. Maybe you have Yelena, because I think Yelena was doubting whether she should do this all the way through. So let's see that a bit more, and let's have Kate Bishop all the way through be going, no, you don't understand. Clint wouldn't have done this. And then maybe Yelena sees how Clint is with Kate and goes, oh, that's the relationship you had with my sister, isn't it? You wouldn't have done this. You couldn't have. Something like that. Like, imagine if that's the end. Instead of having to go, well, someone needs to be fighting Kingpin. And by the way, on that, the Echo Kingpin stuff, Clint and Kate didn't see that. So Clint and Kate kind of, they get their happy, oh, it's all fine ending. Well, how do you know it's fine? Because from your point of view, surely you think Kingpin might still be out there, unless Kate thinks she killed him in the toy shop, in which case I think she should probably have a reaction to thinking she's, killed someone or mortally harmed them. It's just, and again, something else that gets glossed over because of the time they have to do it all in.
Yeah, I think if I was restructuring this series, you remove Kingpin until the post-credits, as you've done, and the final episode, it's basically Echo finds out that not the Kingpin, but through the chain of command, that essentially.
Wow, what if you have Hawkeye say either you move Hawkeye saying your boss sent me after him to the final episode, or you have her boyfriend say it, and she makes that discovery in this final episode, and the post-credit scene is her going to see the boss, who in that moment is revealed to be Kingpin. And then her TV show, spin-off, is about her versus the Kingpin.
Right, yeah, I thought about that, but the way I was thinking of doing it was having, if she's worked her way up the chain of command, she's getting to Kate Bishop's mother before she's getting to Kingpin, right? So liked the idea of the end of this series being she was blaming Kate Bishop's mother for her father's death and going after her. So Kate Bishop was having to defend her mother, who is also involved in crime and should be going to prison herself, from an assassin. Yep. So she's both trying to save her mum and send her mother to prison. Sort of like, that's a good dilemma to put Kate Bishop in.
Yeah.
And that way you can have Kate Bishop purely focused on that side of the combat situation, whereas then you have Yelena going after Hawkeye and you can deal with all the Natasha stuff of it all. So you still have two separate, essentially, sequences happening simultaneously, but they're both much cleaner.
And like you say, you couldn't have dealt with this in this series, because this is kind of beyond the ending. But I don't think, I think the implication at the end, I've got a better idea, and then we smash cut to the Hawkeye title, sort of suggests Hawkeye's saying, look, I'll retire and you be Hawkeye. Right. But from the Clint Barton of it all, the story I'm dying to see that I don't think we will. What the fuck does this new relationship with Kate Bishop mean for his relationship with his current kids? I mean, at the beginning of Endgame, we see him training his daughter with a bow and arrow. The notion of how his daughter reacts to the fact that he hasn't been home as early as he planned for Christmas to see them because he's been building
brought home a new surrogate child.
And he's brought home a new surrogate child who's an archer. Like, I want to see that story. And instead, because again, they don't have the time, and that's kind of another story. But instead, it's, oh no, they're really excited to meet you. Are they? Because I'm not sure that's the reaction most kids would have. And it just sort of, again, gets glossed. This potential has to be glossed over because of the time we have.
Yeah, and I would say as well, like, in terms of going forward, I think what's really exciting for me is we've essentially set up a young Black Widow and a young Hawkeye to
who have
be
great
part
chemistry
of
with
a
each
new
other.
young Avengers team with, Ms. Marvel, maybe She-Hulk, depending on how young they play it with She-Hulk, Ironheart, Speed and Wiccan. Yeah, maybe Kid Loki. There's so much potential. Kid Loki's a big part of the Young Avengers team in the comics, so that's the reason I'm speculating on that. So yeah, I don't know. There's so much I'm excited about in terms of potential, but it does keep feeling like this year Marvel have, I think, been overall more misses than hits, maybe, in terms of I thought the Black Widow movie was pretty flawed, to bad, basically. I thought Eternals was flawed, leaning to good. Not perfect, but there it was. And then you've got Captain America: Winter Soldier, which I think was maybe in on balance the better of all of this. That might have been the best.
ShangChi
one
was
in the
obviously
end.
very good as well.
Well, the problem, did you say WandaVision? Sorry.
No, ShangChi.
Oh, Shang-Chi was very good. I forgot about Shang-Chi. Yeah, Shang-Chi's full on just was good. Unabashedly just was good.
And can I just say, the criticism...
two Captain America boys running about was all right. It was good, I think, but had its problems too because of all the COVID stuff. And then WandaVision had a pretty weak ending. So I don't know. I'm very torn on where we're at with Marvel right now.
Mm.
And we talked about this generic tone they've all had that feels a bit cookie cutter and a bit they're not getting to be as unique as they wanted to be. The best stuff about WandaVision was when it was getting to be unique before it came people shooting lasers at each other. So I don't know. I'm very torn on where Marvel are at right now because it feels they keep just missing the boat with these. Nothing they've released this year has been perfect at all. There've been mixes of all right to good, but nothing's been great, really, with the exception of, I think, Spider-Man and probably Shang-Chi.
And Shang-Chi, I think. Shang-Chi.
Yeah, I said Shang-Chi then.
Oh, sorry. It must have cut out. I didn't hear that.
Except for Spider-Man and Shang-Chi.
One big criticism Shang-Chi gets, I think, is a little unfair. Is but it is an origin story. Yeah, but it's literally an origin story. What do you want Marvel to do?
Story. You can't just go. He's Shang-Chi and about. You need to set that up.
Yeah. And there's nothing, as long as it's a good origin story, as long as it's entertaining, there's nothing wrong with it being an origin story.
Yeah, 100% agree.
And it felt and when I was thinking of Hawkeye, what was my comparison? Yes, Arcane. So Arcane is a really good example of when you see those characters have the skills they have in the fight sequences and stuff, and believe and just know, basically, repeating myself, where those skills came from, why they've got them, and the violence and the action is inherently connected to the characters. And I think that's all the stuff we've discussed about Hawkeye kind of leans towards why you don't feel that way with Hawkeye. It's got some amazing action sequences in it. Again, the ice rink stuff with the Tracksuit Mafia is brilliant. But it's brilliant because the arrows are doing fun things, not because we've seen the Tracksuit Mafia get the upper hand and attack them throughout, and they've been rivals throughout this entire 6-episode series, and now we're seeing a wave of more Tracksuit Mafia people, which we know to be dangerous than we've ever seen before, and they get their asses kicked because Clint and Kate work as a team. It's not that. I think it's maybe meant to be, and I think maybe they thought it was that, but it isn't that, because we haven't had the time to develop the Tracksuit Mafia versus Clint and Kate in the way that the stuff in Arcane is done. In Arcane, we see them raised in the streets. We see them experiencing violence all their life. It's not, and I hate to keep going back to it, but it's not, well, she's been doing martial arts since she was a kid. It's so much more justified. The characters are so much more fleshed out than they are here.
Mm. Agreed.
I think it's a fair comparison. I will say again though, the chemistry between the actors in this show is consistently great, especially Florence Pugh and Haley Steinfeld. Their scenes are always a lot of fun, always very entertaining.
Florence
and Jeremy
Pugh.
Renner as well, and Haley Steinfeld. Have really good chemistry as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's worth watching. I'd absolutely recommend it. But I think the shame of it is, if it had been stunning, I'd be sat here going, I'm going to watch this every Christmas. Right. And I'm not. But I haven't rewatched any of the Marvel shows. If I had to pick one to rewatch now, I'd probably pick WandaVision.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it was my favourite. I just think it's inherently...
Well, so WandaVision kind of like... the ending's not terrible, but also not great. It's got some problems. So it's like, it's such a shame knowing a show ends on a sort of... a not completely satisfying note. That makes it less likely for me to sort of dive in, like to rewatch. Yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating because I just think so much of the stuff the MCU produced this year has been like good or had the potential to be good, and they've just missed the boat a couple of times. Like there's just been some choices have just kind of hurt them, and I think that the inclusion of too many characters is kind of was a part of this. So,
yeah, I think so. But would you recommend it though?
Oh yeah. I think if you're into the MCU at all, this is for you already, I suppose. It's already a must watch, I guess. But I think even if you're not, I still think this is like a fun show. That you'll get a lot out of. It's again not perfect. We've ended up talking more about the criticisms than the things that worked, but that doesn't change that. I think it's more good than bad for sure. And
whilst it doesn't explore the character as much as it could have, it is the best Clint property. It's the best Hawkeye property. It's the best that character's been, at least. Whereas with Black Widow, I would say the Black Widow film is not the best Black Widow the character has been.
No, it actively hurts her character, to be honest.
Yeah, whereas whilst I wish we explored him more, Hawkeye does. It is the best Hawkeye we've got.
There is sometimes, though, I will say with this, where I feel a little bit restricted by the Disney of it all. So for those who don't know, I suppose this is skip this next minute or two if you've not read the My Life as a Weapon comic and you wish to read it. In this series, he's not got his hearing, but it's kind of a result of many years of explosions happening around him. In the comic, it's taken from him in this series. Someone takes one of his arrows and starts to press it into his ear.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's a really savage moment. It's really brutal. It's so powerful, though. Like, having it taken is so much more powerful than it just sort of going as a result of being present for the I don't know. It's things like that make a difference, I think, to me. But that's like the downside to the Disney thing, isn't it?
Well, I think also the Disney thing leads to like the tech of it all. Like they do a really good job of this in showing how Kate is a fantastic archer, whereas Hawkeye, in a way that he never has been before, is kind of a hero because he's got a lot of fancy arrows from Stark Technologies and from Scott Pym and the Pyms and sort of. I really enjoy
Scott Lang, Hank Pym. I assume.
Sorry,
Scott Pym.
Hank Pym, Scott Lang. And I sort of really enjoyed the sort of look at these trick arrows, but I also want a bit of Hawkeye's legitimately. There's some of it, there's the stuff with the coin in that episode, and there is a bit of it, but certainly the last episode, it feels like he's a hero because of the tech, not his archer abilities. Mm-hmm. In a way that we've seen him being a great archer in other stuff.
Yeah. There you go.
So, Dan,
so that's
the
Hawkeye,
Christmas.
everyone. So before
Christmas.
because I'm thinking of snipping this bit out and putting it on the YouTube channel. So if you just listen to this on YouTube, thanks for listening. Well, we've done a full spoilery review, and we don't generally do spoilery reviews on this podcast, and I think people might be interested. So yeah, I'm gonna snip this out and stick it on the YouTube channel at some point. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening.
Why?
If you've done that.
Why the devil not? Thanks for listening. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas indeed.